Since its debut in 1989, The Simpsons has been much more than just an animated comedy. It has been a cultural phenomenon. With over 3 decades of episodes, this iconic series has given us countless laughs, spot-on social commentary, and even eerie predictions of real-life events. But behind the humor and satire lie some mysteries that fans still debate to this day. In today's video, we're diving deep into 10 Simpsons mysteries that still remain unsolved after decades. We'll explore puzzling storylines, strange character details, and hidden clues that have kept fans scratching their heads for years. Why did these mysteries never get explained? Let's find out together. Let us start with one of the biggest mysteries that has puzzled fans for decades: the strange, unchanging ages of the Simpson family. Think about it for a moment. The very first episode of The Simpsons aired way back in December of 1989. That was over 30 years ago. Since then, the world has changed dramatically. We've gone through multiple presidents, the rise of the internet, smartphones, social media, and countless global events. But despite all this real-world change, Bart is still 10 years old. Lisa is still 8. Maggie is still a baby who barely says a word. Marge and Homer are still in their late 30s. Now, at first glance, you might think, well, of course, it's a cartoon. That's how cartoons work, and you wouldn't be wrong. Many animated shows, from Looney Tunes to Family Guy, keep their characters ageless to maintain the same dynamic audiences fell in love with. But here it is where it gets interesting. The Simpsons has never been afraid to break the fourth wall, throw in complex storylines, or hint at deeper meanings behind simple jokes. So when fans began to notice that not only do the characters never age, but the show also frequently changes its own timeline, it sparked countless theories about whether this was simply cartoon logic or whether there was something bigger at play. Consider this. The early seasons often referenced real-world events from the late 80s and early 90s. For example, Homer once recalled going to Woodstock, even though in later seasons, flashbacks placed his high school years in the 1970s, then the 80s, and eventually the 90s. The timeline keeps shifting forward while the characters stay the same age. It's as if the world around them moves through time, but they are frozen in this strange bubble where nothing truly progresses. Some fans argue that this is deliberate, that The Simpsons exists in what you might call a floating timeline, where history rewrites itself to keep the characters contemporary. It's a bit like how comic book characters such as Batman or Spider-Man always stay roughly the same age despite decades of storytelling. Every few years, their backstories get updated to fit modern times while their core traits remain intact. Bart might have been a slingshot-wielding prankster in the 90s, but by the 2010s, he's referencing iPhones and TikTok while still staying in 4th grade. But here's where things get even stranger. Some fans believe there might actually be an in-universe explanation, something within The Simpsons world itself that causes this bizarre time loop. One popular theory suggests that the entire show takes place in Homer's mind, perhaps in a coma after one of his countless accidents. That would explain why time never moves forward, why reality often bends in surreal ways, and why the family remains the same age no matter what happens. Everything we see could be a dreamlike version of Springfield stuck in Homer's subconscious, allowing the writers to insert real-world events without worrying about continuity. Another theory takes a slightly darker turn, proposing that the town of Springfield itself is cursed or exists in some kind of time distortion. After all, The Simpsons has always been full of strange occurrences, from aliens like Kang and Kudos making regular appearances to time-traveling Halloween specials. Could it be that the characters are caught in a time loop, doomed to relive the same years over and over while the outside world moves on? It sounds far-fetched, but this is a show where nearly anything can happen, so fans love to speculate. Then there's the meta explanation offered by some writers themselves. Aging the characters would break the very foundation of the show. If Bart grew up, he wouldn't be the mischievous 10-year-old we know. Lisa wouldn't be the precocious 8-year-old genius. And Homer as a middle-aged dad is essential to the show's humor and charm. By keeping everyone the same age, The Simpsons preserves its formula, even if it means sacrificing realism. But the writers also seem to enjoy teasing fans about this. Over the years, we've seen glimpses of the characters in the future Bart and Lisa as adults. Maggie speaking as a grown woman, yet these episodes always reset back to normal, as if the show itself refuses to let them truly move forward. What makes this mystery so enduring is that The Simpsons blurs the line between satire and storytelling so well that you can never quite tell what's intentional and what's just part of the joke. Are we overanalyzing a simple creative choice, or is there really a hidden meaning behind the unchanging ages of the Simpsons family? For decades, fans have debated this online, dissecting episodes, timelines, and throwaway lines of dialogue, hoping to find a definitive answer. Now, let us move to one of the darkest and most puzzling mysteries in the Simpsons universe, the fate of Waylon Smithers' father. If you've been watching the show for years, you probably know Smithers as Mr. Burns' loyal assistant, the guy who idolizes his boss with almost comical devotion. But buried deep within the show's long history is a backstory that hints at tragedy, unanswered questions, and possibly a hidden cover-up that has kept fans speculating for decades. The mystery begins with a brief moment in the episode titled Mother Simpson, where we learn about various things that happened at the Springfield nuclear power plant years before the show's present timeline. During one scene, a file on screen reveals that a man named Waylon Smithers Sr., yes, the father of the Smithers we all know, died as a result of a nuclear accident at the plant. That single line, dropped casually in the middle of a storyline about Homer's mother, opens up an entire rabbit hole. We're told he sacrificed his life to prevent a catastrophic meltdown, saving the town of Springfield in the process. That would make him a hero, right? But here's the thing, the show never fully explores his story. It never tells us exactly what happened in those critical moments, why there was such a dangerous situation to begin with, or what role Mr. Burns might have played in the tragedy. This lack of detail has led to countless fan theories, some of which point the finger directly at Mr. Burns. After all, we know Mr. Burns as the heartless, money-obsessed owner of the plant who cuts corners at every opportunity. Could his negligence have caused the accident that killed Smithers Sr.? Some fans even speculate that Burns covered up the true story to protect himself and his reputation, rewarding the younger Smithers with a lifelong position at the plant as a way to keep him loyal or, perhaps, to keep him quiet. Then there's the emotional side of the story. Waylon Smithers Jr. is often portrayed as a character desperate for approval, especially from Mr. Burns. If his father really died because of something connected to Burns' actions or decisions, imagine the psychological weight that would carry. It would explain why Smithers seems almost conflicted, at times torn between admiration for his boss and hints of resentment buried deep down. Some episodes even subtly suggest that Smithers isn't entirely comfortable with everything Burns does, yet he remains loyal, almost as if he feels trapped by history, family legacy, or some kind of unspoken debt. Adding another layer to the mystery is the fact that we rarely hear about Smithers Sr. from any other characters. In a town as gossipy and chaotic as Springfield, you'd expect someone, maybe Grandpa Simpson, maybe even the barflies at Moe's, to spill more details about such a major event. But no one ever does. It's like the entire town collectively avoids the topic, which only fuels theories that there's something darker hidden beneath the surface. Over the years, the writers have occasionally tossed in quick references to Smithers' father, almost like breadcrumbs for fans to follow. But these moments never give us closure. For example, in one flashback, we see young Smithers at the plant right after his father's death, being comforted by Mr. Burns. That scene raises even more questions than it answers. Was Burns genuinely trying to help the boy, or was this part of some calculated move to secure loyalty from the next generation? Why hasn't there been an entire episode dedicated to unraveling what really happened that day at the plant? Some fans have gone so far as to suggest that the nuclear accident wasn't an accident at all. In this darker version of events, Burns allowed the meltdown risk to escalate because fixing it properly would have cost too much money. Smithers Sr., realizing the danger, sacrifices himself to prevent disaster. Burns then spins the story, painting himself as the man in charge who kept things under control, while the real hero Smithers Sr. becomes a footnote in history. This theory would make Burns one of the most cold-blooded characters in television history. which, honestly, wouldn't be out of character for him. But there's another twist that keeps this mystery alive. If the writers ever decided to revisit this storyline, they could easily reveal that what we think we know about Smithers Sr.'s death isn't the full truth. Maybe he didn't actually die in the way we were told. Maybe there was more going on at the plant espionage, sabotage, or some other hidden storyline that ties into the many secrets of Springfield. Because The Simpsons often plays with timelines, alternate realities, and dream sequences, nothing is ever completely off the table. What keeps fans coming back to this mystery is that it combines everything the show does so well: humor, tragedy, satire, and just enough intrigue to make you wonder if there's a bigger picture we're not seeing. The fact that the writers have kept this story in the shadows for decades makes it one of the most enduring unanswered questions in the entire series, something that could change the way we see both Mr. Burns and Smithers forever if it were ever fully revealed. Now, we arrive at one of the strangest and most bizarre mysteries in all of The Simpsons lore: the endless cycle of life and death surrounding Hans Moleman. Fans know him as the frail, squinty-eyed Springfield resident whose misfortunes border on supernatural. Time and time again, we've watched him get hit by cars, swallowed by sinkholes, crushed by giant objects, even blown up in fiery explosions, only for him to show up alive and well in the very next episode as if nothing happened. For over 3 decades, this has been happening right in front of our eyes, and the show has never once offered a real explanation. From the moment Hans Moleman first appeared, he was the embodiment of bad luck. He falls downstairs, gets run over by trucks, loses his job, and suffers through countless accidents that would instantly kill anyone else. Yet the next time we see him, he's back in Springfield, carrying on with his life as though the universe just hit the reset button. It's the kind of thing most shows might use once or twice as a running gag, but The Simpsons has turned it into a full-blown mystery spanning decades. Some fans argue that Hans Moleman is nothing more than a punchline, a recurring joke meant to add dark humor to the series. But after more than 30 years of watching him meet his apparent doom again and again, it feels like there has to be more to it than that. Could there be a deeper reason why he always comes back? Is Hans Moleman actually immortal? Or is there something stranger happening in Springfield that we don't fully understand? One theory that has gained popularity online suggests that Hans Moleman is trapped in some kind of time loop, similar to the characters in movies like Groundhog Day. Every time he dies, the timeline resets, but only for him, leaving everyone else in Springfield completely unaware. This would explain why no one ever questions his miraculous returns. It would also fit with the show's long-running theme of bending reality whenever it suits the story. After all, this is the same series where characters can meet celebrities, time travel in Halloween specials, and survive disasters that would wipe out an entire town in real life. Another fan theory claims Hans Moleman might actually be a ghost, or maybe he has been dead all along. Think about it. He lives in Springfield, a place where nuclear waste glows in the streets. Alien spacecrafts casually visit Earth, and mysterious cults operate in plain sight. Could Hans Moleman have died years ago, with his spirit now cursed to walk the town forever, constantly suffering through the same painful fates? It's a dark idea, but it would explain why he seems disconnected from reality most of the time, mumbling in his slow, tired voice as if he's half here and half in the afterlife. But then there's the possibility that Hans Moleman might actually be in on the joke. In some episodes, he seems oddly self-aware, as though he knows he's doomed to suffer. He even delivers lines like, "I was saying Burns," or "I'm only 31 years old," in ways that suggest the writers want us to question whether he's more than just a background character. Could he be Springfield's version of a cosmic punching bag, someone chosen by fate, or maybe even by the show's creators themselves, to endure never-ending misery for the sake of comedy? Of course, part of what makes this mystery so fascinating is that the Simpsons writers never give us a straight answer. They let the audience speculate while continuing to show Hans Moleman falling into open manholes, getting launched into space, or buried under rubble, only to stroll into Moe's Tavern in the very next episode like nothing happened. It's almost like the show wants to see how far it can push this running gag before someone demands an explanation. What's even stranger is how little the other characters react to his constant near-death experiences. In most shows, if a man kept dying and reappearing without explanation, people would at least start asking questions. But in Springfield, everyone just shrugs it off like it's the most normal thing in the world. That raises a bigger question. Is there something about Springfield itself that allows for this kind of reality-bending weirdness? Maybe the entire town exists in a sort of twilight zone where death isn't permanent, and Hans Moleman just happens to be the unluckiest person living there. Some fans have even suggested that Hans Moleman is a stand-in for the audience itself, a character who suffers through every disaster Springfield faces but always comes back because, like us, he can't stay away from the chaos. He's the eternal observer, doomed to experience Springfield's madness over and over without ever escaping it. The beauty of this mystery is that it sits right on the edge between comedy and something much deeper. On the surface, Hans Moleman is just a funny recurring character who never seems to catch a break. But the longer the show goes on, the more his endless cycle of death and rebirth starts to feel like a clue to something bigger lurking under the surface of The Simpsons. Decades later, we're still no closer to understanding why Hans Moleman keeps coming back, and maybe that's exactly how the writers want it. Now we have to talk about one of the most controversial and puzzling storylines in The Simpsons history, a mystery that shook fans back in the late 90s and still sparks debates decades later: the real identity of Principal Seymour Skinner. If you've been watching the show for any length of time, you know Skinner as the strict, by-the-book principal of Springfield Elementary, forever locked in a battle of wits with Bart Simpson and endlessly loyal to his overbearing mother Agnes. For years, he was a familiar, reliable character. Then came the episode titled The Principal and the Pauper, and everything we thought we knew about him got turned upside down. In this infamous episode, we learn that Principal Skinner isn't actually Seymour Skinner at all. His real name, we're told, is Armin Tamzarian. According to the story, the real Seymour Skinner was a sergeant in the U.S. Army, the commanding officer of Armin Tamzarian during the Vietnam War. After the real Skinner supposedly disappeared and was presumed dead, Armin returned to Springfield to deliver the news to Skinner's mother, Agnes. But in a bizarre twist, she mistakes Armin for her son, and instead of correcting her, he just goes along with it, taking over the real Skinner's identity, life, and even his job as principal. Years later, the real Seymour Skinner shows up alive, demanding his life back only for the town to run him out and decide they like the imposter better. In the end, Armin Tamzarian stays, the real Skinner vanishes, and the townspeople promise never to speak of it again. At first glance, it might seem like just another absurd Simpsons plotline. The show has always thrived on weird twists and surreal humor. But this particular story left fans with so many unanswered questions that it became one of the biggest mysteries in the entire series. Was this supposed to be canon? Did the writers actually want us to believe that the Skinner we'd known for nearly a decade was a complete fraud? If so, what did that mean for all the episodes before this one? For many fans, the problem wasn't just the twist itself, but how quickly it was introduced and then brushed aside. The show spent years building up Seymour Skinner's character, his military background, his complicated relationship with his mother, his struggles running the school, only to throw all of that into chaos in one episode and then pretend like it never happened. After The Principal and the Pauper, the series went back to treating him like the same old Skinner, as though the Armin Tamzarian reveal had never occurred. This left fans confused. Was it a permanent change to the character's backstory, or just a one-time joke the writers regretted? The episode's ending even seemed to mock the audience's need for answers. The townspeople literally swear never to speak of the real Skinner again, like the show itself was telling viewers to forget the whole thing ever happened. But of course, fans didn't forget. To this day, they argue about whether the episode ruined Skinner's character or added a fascinating layer of mystery to the series. Some fans believe the entire Armin Tamzarian storyline was meant as satire, a way for the writers to poke fun at TV shows that dramatically change a character's backstory in later seasons. The abrupt ending, where everything goes back to normal, could be a parody of how sitcoms often reset themselves after big events, pretending nothing ever happened so future episodes can carry on as usual. In this interpretation, the real mystery isn't about Skinner's identity at all, but about whether The Simpsons was trolling its own audience, but others take the story more seriously. They argue that the writers planted the Armin Tamarian reveal as a clue to something bigger, maybe even as a meta-commentary on the show itself. Think about it. The Simpsons often plays with timelines, continuity, and alternate realities. Maybe the whole point of the episode was to blur the line between what's real in Springfield and what isn't, leaving fans to wonder if any backstory in the show can be trusted. Then there are fans who theorize that the real Seymour Skinner never disappeared at all, but was somehow forced out by Armin Tamarian or even by the town itself. After all, Springfield isn't exactly the most rational place in the world. Maybe they preferred the version of Skinner who kept the school running and didn't question their chaos-filled lives, so they ran the real one off for their own convenience. It's a strange idea, but in a town where people worship a mysterious monorail salesman and form angry mobs at the drop of a hat, it wouldn't be out of character. What keeps this mystery alive decades later is that the show has never fully clarified the truth. Every so often, there's a throwaway line or a quick joke about Armin Tamarian, but nothing that actually explains whether the episode was canon or just a weird detour. Meanwhile, fans keep digging through old episodes, pointing out inconsistencies and wondering if the Skinner we see today is really who he claims to be or just a man living a lie while the whole town plays along. And there you have it, four of the biggest and most puzzling mysteries in The Simpsons that have kept fans debating, theorizing, and rewatching episodes for decades. From the strange, unchanging ages of the Simpson family to the tragic and murky fate of Waylon Smithers' father, from the bizarre immortality of Hans Moleman to the controversial identity crisis of Principal Skinner, these storylines prove that The Simpsons is so much more than just jokes and one-liners. It's a show with layers, with hidden threads that make you wonder if there's more beneath the surface than the writers let on. Maybe these mysteries will never be solved. Maybe the unanswered questions are what keep us coming back, year after year, looking for clues in the background, dissecting throwaway lines and arguing over fan theories online. After all, part of the magic of The Simpsons is that it leaves room for mystery amidst the humor, as if Springfield itself exists in a world where reality bends, timelines shift, and nothing ever fully adds up, and maybe that's exactly how the writers want it.